Hi guys. Okay, so in this video today, I am going to go over some of the symptoms of narcissistic abuse syndrome, complex PTSD, and some possible help, some possible remedies to sort of help you with some of these symptoms, managing them. If you like this content, feel free to like and subscribe. If you are interested in private coaching, you can go to coachkat.org. I'm accepting coaching clients right now. It's a little bit, some of the schedule might be a little bit out, but we'll do the best we can to get you in. So please feel free to contact me on the website, and then like and subscribe if you like these videos. So let's talk about complex PTSD. Let's talk about narcissistic abuse syndrome. First of all, not every person who experiences emotional abuse who's going to develop complex PTSD, but a lot of them do. And some of it may even have to do with your childhood. And if you had childhood trauma, what we know about trauma is that it's like a layer cake. When you had childhood trauma, you tend to have a proclivity for being more attracted to people that are abusive or more comfort level with that. It's kind of like a layer cake. The more trauma you have, the more it gets layered on itself. So if you had childhood trauma, it's likely that you are going to have a higher chance of having experiencing trauma later in life and to picking partners that will re-traumatize you. So that's true, but you could have had no childhood trauma, and you are certainly it's certainly possible for you to have developed complex PTSD from this relationship specifically, or to have narcissistic abuse syndrome. So let's talk about some of the symptoms of complex PTSD and PTSD in general. And this is not a comprehensive list, but this is some of it. You may have extreme intense feelings of distress, extreme physical reactions, nausea. You could be nauseous, sweating, pounding heart. You can have invasive, upsetting memories of the abuse or of the discovery of the betrayal trauma. You can have flashbacks, the feeling like the trauma is happening all over again. You can have paranoia, nightmares, loss of interest in daily life and activities. You could be feeling emotionally numb, detached from people. You can have a sense of not being able to lead a normal life. You could have a loss of a positive outlook for the future. You might avoid certain activities, feelings or thoughts that remind you of the relationship, or the person, or the event. You could have difficulty with your memory. You could have flashbacks, nightmares, distressing and intense memories. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. Distress or physical reactions after being exposed to reminders or triggers. If you get an email, if you get a phone call, if you drive by the street that you lived with this person, any of those things could be very triggering. You could have very unpleasant changes in your mood, blaming self or others for the trauma. You could have a decreased interest in things that were once enjoyable, negative, depressed feelings about self and the world. You could have an inability to remember things clearly. You could have feelings of isolation, being alone, nobody understands. You could be wanting to avoid the trauma, avoid talking about it, or you could hyper focus on it and talk about it a lot and perseverate and ruminate, and your brain could be stuck in this loop of perseverations, ruminations, talking about it. Those are two ends. Both of those are symptoms of complex PTSD. You could be experiencing aggression or irritability, hypervigilance, hyperawareness, difficulty concentrating, difficulty sleeping, heightened startle response. You could be engaging in destructive or risky behaviors, risky sex, substance uses, cutting, drinking too much, drugging, anything like that. You could have a real difficulty with sleep, with staying asleep. These are all possible things. And then, you could have, with the gaslighting, you could have foggy brain, extreme confusion, panic attacks, rapid heart rate, feeling like you absolutely can't breathe, like you're just, in this state of shock. And I talked about, extreme anxiety, paranoia, fear, hypervigilance. You could be looking over your shoulder, feeling completely terrified. These are all possible symptoms. And this is, it is not a comprehensive list. list. You could be feeling detached from reality, like you're disassociated, like you're living in this dream world, like your life is not real. Incredible cognitive dissonance. You may be really struggling with reconciling the person that you thought you were in relationship with the one they turned out to be. It could be such a great gap, such a dichotomy that your brain is having a very, very hard time accepting those two realities. Like it's cognitive dissonance is incredibly intense with the members of this community, because that is what the gaslighting does to your brain. There's all books written on what gaslighting actually does to your psyche. It's very damaging. It actually can do it's almost like a traumatic brain injury. It's not concussive, but it's having a lot of the similar effects that you would have from a traumatic brain injury. And you could be triggered if you hear from, the abuser, also if you hear from their flying monkeys, because typically either the abuser and the flying monkeys are all going to be invalidating your experience of abuse. I'm going to go over a little bit of gaslighting, and I'm going to read in this book. This is a hugely helpful book. It is called The Gaslighting Recovery Workbook, Healing from Emotional Abuse, Amy Marlowe and McCoy. It is so good. I'm going to read what is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological and emotional abuse that causes victims to question their reality, judgment, self-perception, and in extreme circumstances, their sanity. Gaslighters distort truth to manipulate, confuse, and control their victims. The term originates from Patrick Hamilton's 1938 play Gaslight, which was adapted into films in the 1940s. The story features a man who manipulates and deceives his wife into believing she is going insane. When one of the tactics he uses is to dim the gas lights in the house, making them flicker. When his wife asks about the lights, he convinces her that she is imagining the dimming. The 2001 movie Amelie also features a main character who gaslights someone, in this case, a shopkeeper. Amelie sneaks into his home and moves numerous objects around and programs his phone to dial a psychiatric institution when he thinks he's calling his mother. The shopkeeper is frightened and confused, and he believes that he has lost his mind. Gaslighting has taken on a broader definition in modern parlance. We now use the term to describe the tactic of manipulating victims into doubting their reality, memory, or perception. Changing the physical environment is not necessarily required. Victims can be gaslit by questioning, mocking, or denying their reported experience until they lose confidence in their own senses. Interestingly enough, the narcissist or whatever, cluster B or whatever that I was with, one of that person's favorite movies was Amelie. Puts it all into a different perspective now. But bottom line is as you can see, the gaslighting, creates, it damages your brain, your sanity, your reality, your sense of self. You no longer feel that you can even trust yourself. You feel that you're completely confused. And most of the survivors I have talked to in these communities, these men and women who are coming to me, that I'm coaching, that I'm talking to, these people are intelligent. They are incredibly, most of them are very self-aware. They're emotionally intelligent. Most of them are very high IQ, high functioning people. They get into these relationships, and it's almost as if they've had a traumatic brain injury. Like, again, not concussive, but like a traumatic brain injury. Like, they're coming out of here going, I don't understand what's happened to me. My brain isn't working correctly. I can't think. I can't read. I'm a huge reader. And the first year after I found out about, the D-Day and the double life, like, I literally couldn't read. I could not read. I had to get Audible because I wasn't able to read and comprehend what I was reading. And I'm somebody who reads, my whole life. I usually read 2-3 books a month. Like, I'm always reading, right? And I could not read. I called my mom. I was like, I can't read. So I started listening, and that helped. But this is all doing a lot of really crazy things to your brain. So I understand if you have been through this. I believe you. I know what you are experiencing. It is something that is incomprehensible. It's hard to put your finger on. I mean, if you had never been in one of these relationships before, it's like you keep saying to yourself, like, I've never been through this before. Like, I don't even know what's happening right now. And in general, you may have been in some dysfunctional relationships, but maybe they weren't with emotional manipulators, abusers, narcissists, psychopaths, or sociopaths. So it may have been that, they were your everyday jerk or whatever, but that's different. This is very different when you have been manipulated to, believe that, everything's one way, and then you find out it's completely another way. I mean, this is very, very confusing for people, and it does some really traumatic things to your psyche, your nervous system, your brain, your body, all of it. And again, I think I touched on this, but the narcissist is obviously going to be invalidating your experience of abuse, because these are people who act like the proverbial victim. Nothing's ever their fault. They absolutely refuse to take any personal responsibility for any harms that they cause. They have an inability to introspect or do any sort of self-reflection. So they're not going to take any responsibility. They're going to diminish and demean and invalidate your experience. And they're masters at playing the victim. So they appear, they're just such the victim. They don't know why this happened. They don't know why this person is acting this way. Of course, that I'll make a video on this too, but that's like reactive abuse. Often the narcissist will be doing all of these things under the radar to sort of, incite or sort of like messing and torturing the victim. And then the victim will act out like a normal human being from egregious torture, basically, right? Psychological mindfuckery. And when they react like a normal human being who has normal emotions that has been tortured, then the narcissist will point it out and go, oh, look at how crazy she is, or look how crazy he is, right? That's reactive abuse, where they are creating a reaction to make the victim look like, or, the survivor look like the crazy one. So I know that that's probably happened to you. You may have been painted as this crazy person. Also, the narcissists are very, very good at impression management. That's their whole existence, is about managing this false mask. If you're neurotypical, you're not doing impression management like that. Yeah, we all maybe have little masks here and there, but we're not like pretending to be somebody we're not, right? We're usually pretty authentic, the people that they usually are with. So you're not a master at that. You're not a master at wearing a fake mask and pretending to be somebody you're not. You just probably aren't. They are. So they're able to pull that off really, really well. They've had like their whole lives to practice it, right? So you might actually look like the crazy one. And then of course, the narcissist flying monkeys, that is their friends or family or anyone who is either knowingly or unknowingly validating the narcissist position and invalidating your experience of abuse. This is very common. They may not know they're doing it. They may believe the narcissist, and that, that's sad for them. But, I always say, check your sources, check the facts. So either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, they are going to be invalidating your experience, right? So, it's important for you to not get triggered, to stay away from those people. Stay away from anyone who is supporting and validating an abuser and not trying to find out what the actual truth of the situation is. Stay away from them. They are not good. They're not good people. They have not done, I don't know, I shouldn't be so black and white, but they're not, they're not decent, and they're not doing the right thing. They're not finding out the truth and, helping the victim. So they're basically, siding with an abuser, whether they know it or not, and they are going to trigger you. So I know that you may have been invalidated. Even your own friends and family may have invalidated you because they don't know. They cannot understand what you've been through. I found that even with therapists that are amazing, like unless, a lot of times, unless people have been through this themselves, it is very hard to really fully grasp and understand what these victims, what these survivors are experiencing. It is very traumatic. So I just went over a lot of the symptoms of complex PTSD, narcissistic abuse syndrome. There are many other symptoms that I did not cover. This is not a comprehensive list. I know that you may be having all sorts of things, fatigue, sore body, inability to think correctly. These are all very, very common symptoms. Now what I'm going to go over is I'm going to go over a list of things that can help you. This again is not comprehensive. These are just some suggestions to help you. First of all, number one, get support. And I know that if you're with one of these people, you may have been completely isolated. You may have gotten to a point where you have no support. Or they could be more like the neglectful narcissist where they're just gone all the time. They don't really care what you're doing. They don't really care about you. So in that case, you might have been pretty good about getting your own support. I don't know what your particular situation is, but get support. Friends and family, people that are going to help to support you and validate your experience. But also, if you don't have any friends or family and you've gotten so isolated, you can try a 12-step support group. Not just 12-step, there's other support groups. You can go online, find a narcissistic support group. You can go to Al-Anon, you can go to Coda, you can go to S-Anon. Most of these narcissists are also pornography addicts or sex addicts. One and the same. Porn, sex addiction, it's about the same. It's really all the same. So if that's the case, there is a group called S-Anon, and it's a support group for partners of sex addicts. That might be very helpful for you. Get support. Go, your church, your friends. I mean, however you need to, it's very important that you get social support. There's also a lot of these online communities. There's Facebook groups, there's private groups. Join one. I just would be careful to be selective because you don't want to be into one that's just about the problem. I'm really think it's important to make sure that you're focusing on the solution. Like, yeah, we can ruminate about the narcissist all day long, but what's really important is that we get the healing that we need so we never get with these people again, so we can heal and move on and have happy and thriving lives. Very important to get physically active. I don't care if you're going for a walk, if you go for a walk on the beach, if you can go for a jog, great. But if you can just walk, that's fine. Go for a walk in the woods, a walk in your neighborhood. If you can do yoga, Tai Chi, any sort of, surfing, swimming, any sort of physical activity. I love to rock climb, so that's been really helpful for me. There could be a bouldering gym. Even if you don't rock climb, go boulder. It's just playing around on the rocks. Very important to get a trauma therapist. I believe a therapist who understands narcissistic abuse syndrome and who can do EMDR. I think it's really key if you can do some EMDR. I did 35 sessions, I think, and that helped me a lot because it helped me to deal with the childhood trauma, which was the narcissist was triggering a lot of my childhood trauma. And so the more I started to learn how to heal and parent my inner child and how to really care for myself and love myself and protect myself from predators, that's the journey I've been on to learn how to, protect myself. I can't change the predator. I'm never going to change that predator from being a predator, never. But what I can do is learn how to spot the red flags and how to avoid predators. I mean, physical, emotional, psychological, it doesn't matter what kind of abuse that they're willing to inflict. My job is to avoid the predators, right? And I can't do that if I can't see that they're predators. That's great. Also, transcranial magnetic stimulation. I did that. It was very helpful for me. I actually did a study because I was diagnosed with complex PTSD, and I did a study at a university where they actually paid me, which was awesome. But that's maybe something you might want to look into. Also, diet. It's very important that you're eating a lot of really healthy greens and vegetables and fruits and drinking 8 glasses of water a day. We're going to have this, desire to eat a bunch of sweets and to not eat well because it's sort of a trauma response, but it's really important for you to make sure you're getting good nourishment. And then rest. So important for you to get plenty of sleep. And this is hard because you probably have insomnia and sleep problems, but it's super important. Again, I think I mentioned yoga and then meditation. On YouTube, there are some really good meditations for narcissistic abuse syndrome and then also for complex PTSD. You can also download an app. I use Calm. I also use another app called 10% Happier, and it has a lot of information on meditation, daily meditations, and it's in guided meditations. Deep breathing, very important. If you have the space and time, volunteer. The volunteerism is one of the things that they talk about to be very helpful for people to recover. Maybe you can join a support group where you're able to call other, men or women who have suffered narcissistic abuse, and you're able to sort of, if you are a little farther along in your healing journey, you're able to call and offer them some hope and some support and some love. Like any sort of volunteerism that you can do would be very helpful. And I understand you may have a lot going on, work and children and all of these things. So I know that some of this is going to be difficult to do, but basically you're in the business right now of figuring out how to save your life. So do what you can to save your life. And of course, this no contact with the flying monkeys. Like your healing doesn't really begin, I believe, until you go no contact. That's when you really start to heal. And, the thing is that, again, you're going to have all of these symptoms, and they are really, really problematic. But I think, with concentrated work and really doing some, trauma therapy and trauma coaching and, maybe in abuse coaching, there's a lot of things that you can do to really help to heal from this, trauma that you have experienced. And you kind of have to look at the narcissistic relationship as you're breaking an addiction, right? You are breaking an addiction to a toxic relationship and a toxic person. And just like breaking an addiction to drugs or alcohol or cigarettes or sugar or chocolate or shopping, I mean, these are all addictions. And in order to break them, you've got to one day at a time commit to, stopping the behavior. And if it's, that's why I think when you're trying to get away from the narcissist, if you put an app on your phone, I use one called Habit Bull, and I started counting my days of no contact, and I rewarded myself for every week that went by that I did not either respond to the narcissist or, contact the narcissist. It helped for me because I blocked him on everything. I blocked the phone, I blocked the social media, I blocked all the flying monkeys. And then I was able to start healing, and you get out of the fog, you get out of the sickness of the relationship that you were in, and you start to see it for what it really was. And you start to come into reality. And, I'm not going to go into this right now, but I am going to make some videos on self-forgiveness, because as much as you're angry at the narcissist or this cluster B person, the reality is, or the truth, it may be that you're actually really angry at yourself, because why didn't I see it? How didn't I know this was happening? How did I let myself be mistreated in this way? And these are a lot of the things that will go, that can sometimes go through our minds. I'm definitely going to make some more videos on this because, I think that as survivors or codependents or empaths, we tend to blame ourselves for everything that, goes wrong. And the funny thing about that is, if you're with a narcissist, they're the ones that are going, I did nothing. I didn't do anything. It's not my fault. They take no responsibility. And you, if you're like the codependent sort of empath, you're taking too much responsibility. You're taking over responsibility for what happened. Like, what could I have done differently? Like, why didn't I do this? Or why wasn't I perfect? And I have one thing to say to you that one of my therapists said to me that I think was just so beautiful. She said, "Oh, darling, what made you think that you had to be perfect in order to be loved?" So I hope you take that away, that you do not have to be perfect in order to be loved. And you're with somebody who's disordered, and it didn't matter what you did. There's nothing you could have done to change things, because they are never satisfied. It doesn't matter if you are Jennifer Lawrence or Claudia Schiffer or whatever. It doesn't matter. There's nobody is going to be good enough for their insane, perfectionistic ideals that they themselves absolutely have never been able to live up to or can't live up to. So they expect more out of other people than they expect out of themselves, which is absolutely crazy. But don't worry about that. Just know that you don't have to be perfect in order to be loved. And when you're in a real relationship with a real person that's done their work and that's capable of personal responsibility and introspection and self-reflection, you're going to have a very, very different experience. So I hope you guys are thriving and you have a wonderful day. And sorry about the little delay in videos. I'm going to make some more when I get some time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.